What would you do if you had 3 days inside of a mall infested with zombies? Well, one game answered that question, and you read the title, you know what we're talking about, the legendary game Dead Rising, and we have a hell of a game to unpack here. Coming from Capcom of Japan, the same guys behind the legendary Resident Evil franchise that I'm sure everybody knows now, developed exclusively for the American Xbox 360, this game takes place in a small town inside of Colorado. Some really interesting development history behind that one.
Distinguishing characteristics, jack shit.
You filled the shoes of Frank West, an independent freelance journalist who gets a tip-off to visit this small town inside of Colorado to look into a zombie outbreak. This is when you're dropped off onto the rooftop of a mall and you have to figure out what's going on, look for survivors, and get to the bottom of it. You have 3 days to collect all the clues, get all the information you can, and save as many people as possible while getting out of there alive. And you do this by having an entire mall at your disposal as your playground sandbox. I always had a general idea of what Dead Rising was, but I severely underestimated what I was getting into because I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, I'm gonna knock this game out in about 6 hours, make a cool video out of it. Well, that ended up being more like 30. So after an entire week of playing this game, I finally beat it, and I'm excited to finally talk to you guys about it because, damn, I've been sleeping on this one.
Don't be daydreaming out here.
Like I said, this game originally came out as an exclusive for the Xbox 360. However, they not too long ago, they remastered it for the PlayStation 4 and modern consoles, which allowed me to play this on the PS5. Ironically, this game from 2006 is what I've played most on my PlayStation 5 since I've gotten it. So don't let anybody tell you that there's not a demand for backwards compatibility because that's bullshit. I remember back in middle school, my friend was telling me about Dead Rising. He was like, yeah, you run around a mall and you just use anything as a weapon, and the guy says, yeah, a lot, like that.
Yeah.
Like a specific memory of mine is him like imitating the sound of Frank every time he tries on clothes or something. Yeah, that's burnt into my head. Let's start with the setting of Dead Rising, the mall. The mall is big. It's got everything you could want. Of course, you got your department stores like a perfume shop and your clothing stores, but you also got a grocery store, a sporting goods store like Bass Pro Shops, and you got a gun store too inside of a mall.
Red, white, and blue Americans.
You got pretty much everything you would want during a zombie apocalypse inside of one little area. You even got a nice little park in the center of the mall. That's pretty cool. One thing I really want to emphasize about this game is that it came out in 2006. This was basically a launch title for the Xbox 360. And playing this in 2022, it really doesn't feel this old. I mean, when I'm playing this in 2022, I'm just blown away by the amount of detail that's inside of this mall. I mean, you can use virtually everything as a weapon. Chairs, tables, potted plants. You can pick up skateboards off of the wall to ride around the map in. And you just have so much stuff compacted into this small space. It's kind of like a Yakuza title. And on top of that, as you can see, there's quite a few zombies in this game. The screen is just littered with them. You can jump on top of these crowds and just crowd surf the zombies, or if you're driving a car or pushing a shopping cart, you'll just plow through piles of them. This was some really impressive tech back in the day, and even today, it still looks great. If you're using a lawnmower on them, or a katana, or an auger, there's like gore everywhere and limbs coming off, and they definitely spent a lot of time getting the attention to detail right in the map. I mean, it feels like a convincing mall. You use bathrooms as save points in the mall, and they're exactly where you would expect them to be, like in the back corner of an area or inside of the movie theater. Just the overall branding and aesthetics inside of the mall just look really genuinely great. I'm on the gym right now, and you get a point bonus for running on the treadmill. The attention to detail is so good in a lot of areas that I almost didn't notice where it was bad in other areas. Like the fact that there's one entrance area for the entire mall. One entrance. If there was a fire inside of this mall, you'd be in trouble because there's no emergency escapes. Well, there are actually exit doors, but they all lead to this weird underground tunnel system under the mall. Or the fact that like right here in the gym, you got these sliding doors that open up, but at the grocery store, there isn't sliding doors for you to go in and out of with the carts. They're just doors that open with a handle. So I can imagine the act of going in and out with groceries being a big pain in the ass. But outside of that, it looks really great. It's a really great environment to spend time in. And because it's like you got this sandbox vibe going on, you'll want to spend a lot of time in it, but not too much time.
That's against regulations.
Because like I said, you have 3 days to get everything you need done in the game. You're picking up these clues from different characters that you meet to figure out what the hell's going on and why this outbreak happened. You're wanting to get the big scoop to make this big story, right? And this is where the game really started to catch me off guard, for a lack of a better word. because the game runs on this day-night cycle, and with each day passing, you have certain objectives that you have to complete or certain survivors that you can save at certain times. And if you don't get to these missions and complete them in the allotted time, you lose the entire story. So you can essentially fail the story in the game, not get your proper ending, and the game will continue to go for those 3 days. And this can be a real pain in the ass when it comes to saving your game, because say you save your game right before you're running out of time for a certain mission. Every time you load into that save, you'll fail the mission and lose that game every time. And back on the Xbox 360, you apparently only had one save. In the remaster, you can have like 6 different save slots, but in the original, if you screwed that save up, you were fucked for that game. Oh. Come on, I had to take a shit. But this is intentional by design because the game wants you to replay it a lot. Because see, Frank himself has a rank, like, I don't know, like an RPG. You rank your character up, and when you rank up, you get faster, more agile, you get more health. So if you die in the game, or a supporting character dies, or you miss a certain story element, you can actually leave the game and save your character state and keep your rank, but start a new game with those new stats. And you'll be doing this because the game gets progressively easier as you play it, and there will be certain things that you just can't pull off in your first playthrough that you'll be able to in the second one.
You did it, yeah!
There's a lot of different survivors that you can save throughout the game, and you will not be able to save all of them on your first playthrough. No damn way.
Goddamn pig!
But when you come through on the second playthrough, you'll be stronger and you'll be more apt to being able to save them. There's also just straight up things that you won't notice on your first playthrough, like when I went to save a survivor after failing the story in my first playthrough, I wasn't able to save her because I didn't talk to this specific story character, so she wouldn't trust me to follow her to safety. But when I revisited that point in my second playthrough, I was able to because she was like, oh, you know this person and they seem like somebody I should talk to, so I'll follow you to the safe room. And you don't get these little sub-stories and stuff if you don't complete the story in this way. Also, it's just a lot more fun to play the game again as this badass character who's ranked up and is stronger. You know, when you're the level 1 slime getting destroyed by the bosses, and you come back the second playthrough as the level 99 chief, the legend 37 gamer status, and you can just go and wipe the floor with all of them, it's just really satisfying. You'll also be playing the game again because there's 6 different endings apparently. Yeah, it's crazy. I've gotten 2 of them after 30 hours of playing the game, and there's 4 more. It's insane, dude.
Yeah.
Content like this would be a pre-order bonus, or it would be locked behind DLC paywalls, but in this game, they wanted you to replay it and experience this stuff in different ways. You'll also unlock different costumes and things for completing these different endings, like when you get the true ending, you'll unlock an infinity mode where it's like a survival mode where you have to survive in the mall for as long as possible and just see how far you can take it, just adding more value to playing the game more. So yeah, while in theory the game can be beaten in 6 hours, you're not gonna be doing that. Nope, not happening. Good luck.
What are you doing?
And playing the game and getting stronger ties into beating these bosses. There's no comparison. There's such a stark contrast between the first time I fought these bosses to the second time that it's not even funny. These bosses that you fight are called psychopaths. These are people who were average, ordinary people that eventually turn crazy because of the apocalypse. They all have their little micro stories that are intertwined into you meeting them and beating them, and they're all satisfying to fight. It's kind of similar to Metal Gear Solid's bosses and the way they're set up and the way they play out. It's really neat. It's really satisfying to actually be able to beat these guys, because the first time you do it, it's going to be infuriatingly frustrating, and the second time you do it, it might be incredibly easy. It's almost like they did that intentionally. As a reward for defeating the bosses, they'll drop a special weapon wherever you defeated them at, and it'll always spawn in there when you go back to it. On one of the bosses that you fight, you get a weapon. You get this mini chainsaw, which is extremely overpowered, and I think you can pretty much knock out all of the bosses with this thing easily. Maybe that was a little bit of an oversight, I don't know. But the psychopath stories tie into the main story, and it almost makes you humanize with them a little bit. Like, they're supposed to be the bad guys, but you can kind of see why they turned the way they did. And it makes playing through the main story so satisfying. It's really good. The game has really good voice acting, despite the fact that it came from a Japanese developer and they probably had to outsource the voice acting. For 2006, this is really good stuff. If it wasn't for all of the Japanese quirks that are in this game, you probably wouldn't even know that it was a Japanese game with how good they pulled this off.
I just want you to appreciate the situation.
Well, we're up to our necks in zombies. Yeah, I think I appreciate the situation just fine.
Of course, there's some weird translation errors on the signage and stuff and the text in the game, but other than that, I mean, really solid. But some of those quirks are what make the game really good. Like, the game has this arcadey feel to it. You get a camera where you take pictures because you're a freelance journalist, photographer.
I've covered wars, you know.
And this camera system's really cool. It'll detect what's going on in the scene, whether it's a horror element or a graphic element or an erotica element.
Perfect.
And you get prestige points based on how good the picture is, and I really like the camera system in this, even though it's not a mandatory thing. It's really nice inclusion. You also see the photos in the loading screens, which is pretty cool, even though the loading screens are very long on a modern SSD. For the most part, all the melee weapons are satisfying to use. The guns are, the combat's a little clunky. It's that early 2000s stop in place and aim with a trigger and look around combat. It's not the best, but it works. And while all these time story elements and ways that you rank up to incentivize playing again are great things that add value to playing the game, this is where some of the ugly early 2000s gaming side effects start to rear their ugly heads and started to make the game a little unfun. First off, that starts with the survivors, which, oh my god, the AI is fucking horrible for them. So a big key element to the game is saving survivors. In between story missions and the boss battles, this is the main thing that you're doing. They cannot figure out how to navigate the geometry of the map. You will have a path that goes straight forward around the zombies, and they will choose to go directly into the crowd of zombies and start fighting them. If you go up a staircase or you have to climb on a platform, they'll just stand there and stare at it and run in circles until maybe eventually they'll climb on it. And they die so easily, and the thing is, like I said, everything's timed and it's very specific, and if you mess up, you can't go back. If the survivors die, you can't save them. Once they're dead, they're gone for that playthrough. That's part of the reason I was saying you're not going to save everybody on your first playthrough. Once that specific character's dead, they're dead. Which is cool because they all have a nice personality and they all have a name to them, but God, they're so dumb. It gets to the point where this just can be infuriating. But funny enough, if you have a segment where there's somebody who's wounded that you have to carry on your shoulder or your back as you're going through the crowds of zombies, they'll seem less inclined to attack you, so it's extremely easy. But God forbid if you gotta carry through 2 or 3 people at once, man. Oh, dude, it's such a chore.
Bruh.
The cool thing is that you can give the survivors weapons and health to fend off and fight for themselves, but they're so dumb that a lot of the times it might probably just make it worse. I'll give some survivors a gun to stay strapped up, and I think they just get distracted and have a good time turning the zombies into a shooting gallery when we need to be going around the zombies to get to the safe room. Alright, here we go. Oh, fuck. I don't want anybody getting left behind, so move your ass as quick as you can. Yo, what the fuck are you guys doing? This is the first time I've gotten to shoot my load all week. I'm getting a gun. Where'd your bullets go? You have this walkie-talkie that Otis, the janitor, gives you as you're exploring throughout the map, and as you go on with the story, he'll call you and be like, hey, this person's locked up in a shop, you should go save him. And it don't matter what point in the fucking game you're playing, this dude's gonna call you up and ignore the shit out of you. I'll be in the middle of a boss fight, and this dude will not stop ringing my line. If I cut him off, he'll be like, yo, why are you ignoring me? That's rude. And I'm like, dude, you know that the mall's literally about to explode if I don't beat this story section, and you won't stop calling me, dude. Chill. Oh yeah, stay right there. Just like that. Otis, I'm going for an erotica. And the survivor AI becomes more of a prominent problem when it comes down to the traversal of the map, which seems to become more of a problem the longer that you play. There's one little fast travel point that will instantly deliver you from one side of the map to the other side of the map, but that's it. You'll do a lot of backtracking where you'll have to go to the far corner of the mall to save somebody or grab an item, then bring it back to the safe room, then go all the way to the far corner again to interact with another story element. You'll be going all over the place, and this is a fairly sizable mall, and you have a few things to help you, like you can grab a skateboard and skate around, but there's giant hordes of zombies in the way, and sometimes you don't want to fight those hordes of zombies. Like I said before, this goes on a day-night cycle, and that's really cool, and at night the zombies get more aggressive, which is also cool. But when you're fighting down to the last second of your time tooth and nail because you got to complete the story element, but saving the survivors been taking all your time because they're fucking retarded, it gets a little frustrating. There were so many times I had to replay the same mission or the same boss battle or something over and over over and over because I either ran out of time or somebody died that I had to save or I wanted to save. And I can imagine how that would have been an even bigger deal if you had only had one save slot. I had like 6. But I guess that's just one of the things where you have to take the good with the bad. You wouldn't want the traversal to be too easy to where it got boring to go around the map. But I definitely feel like a lot of times it just leaned over to that side where it was just a little more frustrating than fun to traverse through the map when it came to going from one corner to the other after you've already been doing it for 10 hours. In the final hours of the game, it starts to feel like there's a lot of padding. Like I said, lots of backtracking from one corner of the map to the other a couple of times. But in the final hours of the game, there's segments where you have to go and collect these items and you're going all around the entire map to collect these items. Minor spoiler here, but there's now the military involved with this whole situation and they can hit scan the fuck out of you, just accurately knock you down with their assault rifles constantly, just aim at you dead on pinpoint accurate precision no matter where you're at. And every time they capture you, they hold you captive and you gotta break free and escape this chopper, and then you go back to your main story missions and it'll spawn you in the same place no matter how inconvenient every single time that you get captured. So now you have the hit scan human AI coupled with the fact that it's taking you forever to travel everywhere, plus you have a time limit that you have to do all of this, and that's when the game is at its most frustrating, and that definitely comes into play towards the end, unfortunately.
That can't be good.
But other than that, I pretty much dig everything about the game, man. The aesthetic is great. I love that early 2000s UI, that early Capcom UI with the gradient filters over the menu elements. I didn't know what word I was trying to say. There's so many memorable story characters that you'll never forget after playing this game. Brad, Carlito, Isabella, Jesse. Even the survivors that play the most minuscule part in the game have their own personalities, looks, and names. It's like I said, it's like Yakuza with zombies meets Shenmue. What kind of fucking stupid comparison is that? The mall is just a treat to explore. It's packed with so much convincing detail. It looks great. It's fun to explore. The game's got a lot of replay value and it holds up extremely well, and if you're looking for one of those kind of difficult, really heavily narrative-driven story games with zombies, this is definitely the game to go to.
I can't wait to get my share of the take.
The interesting thing about Dead Rising is that it's kind of in a league of its own. Everything after the first Dead Rising game, like Dead Rising 2 and above, was outsourced to Capcom of Canada. Vancouver's in Canada, right? Capcom of Vancouver, another developer. So the first one was really the only true Dead Rising experience that we got. It explains why a channel like Stippo, who's dedicated their channel to Dead Rising 1 content, has been able to thrive for years now. And even like 15 years later, people are still discovering things about this game. It's actually kind of mind-blowing and interesting as hell. This game had just so much charm and character poured into it. You had this really talented developer working on a game that takes place in an entirely another country. Not that it's their first time doing this or anything. It's so unique and so enjoyable and has so much good character development in it that nothing else really compares to it. Especially not Dead Rising 4. What the fuck did they do to Frank? They brought him back and massacred my boy. The thing about Dead Rising is that it always had a serious undertone, even though it was kind of a silly game at times, because you would have a toy store you could go into and get meme weapons like a ball shooter or a toy sword. But it made sense contextually because you were in a mall. I think all of the newer Dead Rising titles just didn't get that. They did it for the LOL random elements and it didn't feel genuine. Frank himself is such a simple character with a specific mission, and you kind of get to see him grow and see the tone in his voice change as he experiences these new things, and it feels like he's a genuine character. He fits his role perfectly, and then in Dead Rising 4 they made him this cringy, selfie-taken fucking weirdo. It's truly a product of its time. I really think that that generation of games were the best. You know, it's really interesting too because a lot of early Xbox 360 titles just didn't really seem like they were that good, but this one came out the fucking gate swinging and it was fantastic. There's plenty of other zombie games out there for you to experience that are great, but they don't hit the same as Dead Rising. And if you need further proof of that, just go look at the other zombie games I've covered. Dying Light, Left 4 Dead, Dead Island. It's like every single zombie game has dead in the name of it, but none of them are a 3-day sandbox fuckfest inside of a mall like Dead Rising, and it's pretty awesome. If you played Dead Rising, I'm sure you're aware of all the little details that are in this game. Drop them in the comments if you can remember your favorite ones, because I'm sure there's ones that I haven't even seen after 30 hours of playing. It's worth your time to play Dead Rising, even if it's just once. I got other zombie games and video game retrospectives you can check out on my channel if you enjoyed this one. You want to support me further? Join the members tab, throw me a couple bucks, and get yourself some behind the scenes stuff whenever I take video outtakes and stuff that I'll put there. And yeah, that's all I got, baby. It's been T, aka Sometimes I Drink Tea. This took a hell of a lot of time, but I hope you enjoyed it. This was a really fun game. Really glad I checked this one out. Hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one. Happy birthday, Adam! I don't want anybody getting left behind, so move your ass as quick as you can. Oh, fuck. Alright, that's curtain call, everybody. Thank you for all of your support. I'm glad we could come together to make this amazing project. I'm giving my speech, man. Otis, we're literally at the ending credits. There's nothing else.